And we'll see what ends up happening here. And it's a Sensei's Vine Top. Probably the best way for Dan to start, as it's very troublesome for Ross to try to go off here in the face of that, because the Terminus can just blow up everything.
Even if Ross is able to go off and, get Crater Hoof Behemoth, Terminus still breaks up the combo at instant speed for 1 mana, so it's very challenging. Ross is just going to have to, I think in most games, just kind of go for it and hope it's not there. Because
I think that's all you really can do, right?
Yeah.
You can't play around it. Saw Merriam start off with the Deathrite Shaman off of Bayou. He's at 19. He'll take a draw here.
So for Ross, breathing a sigh of relief. He has escaped the first phase of the game. Dan does not have counterbalance.
Merriam deep in the tank on the second turn. This is a Quirion Ranger. Activate the Deathrite. That's a Cradle. That's a Zenith for 2. This is a Spell Pierce. Pay 2. Can't. Back to Musser we go. Musser will spin the top on the upkeep. Entreat the Angels is a miracle, but it's not Terminus.
And it looks like Dan has a pretty soft hand besides a Elemental Blast, a couple lands. A blue card I can't make out, but...
Rendillion click the draw. Back to Merriam we go. Ross will draw a card. You saw him try to Zenith for 2 to get another Visionary, but Musser said no sir with the Spell Pierce. So let's see what Ross can do this turn.
Ross already with Natural Order in his hand. So if he can attack with both of these creatures and somehow get a Crater Hoof this turn, I believe he does not quite have lethal.
Yeah, I promise he's going to go for it. I've seen him do this before.
I mean, with the creatures he currently has in play, it is not lethal. If it's just Crater Hoof plus the 2 available attackers, if Ross is able to get some other creatures in play that can attack but can establish a larger Crater Hoof trigger, he may be able to get to lethal.
Sure.
And that is a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. He sacrifices this guy. I imagine he'll sacrifice. I thought he might sacrifice the Arbor, but he's going to sacrifice the Quirion Ranger and see if this resolves.
And so right now, this Crater Hoof Behemoth is for +4, so that's 12, 17, 18, 19 coming across, if I'm counting correctly.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have 19 as well.
Yeah.
Musser at 20, but he has a fetch land to play.
So, I mean, Ross can attack here. If Dan doesn't have Terminus, he's unlikely to have it the next turn. He can't crack the fetch land anymore.
But yes, in theory, he can crack the fetch land and hope to hit a Terminus. And if he misses, he dies.
Sure. That's the other play. And that's probably higher percentage play here than trying to go to your draw step, because you're getting 3 clean looks at it as opposed to just the 1 from
19?
your draw step. So I'm surprised if this was the plan all along.
For Ross?
If Dan was going to do this anyway, I'm surprised that he didn't do this in response to the Natural Order, because he could have found, say, a counterspell for the Natural Order.
Sure. It will be a little bit awkward if he finds Forcible on these 3 cards and not Terminus, for example. You're definitely right
Even
about
Spell
that.
Pierce.
Yeah, that's true,
I mean, all those cards are fine. Now he's basically on Terminus or bust. But I like Ross's line of play a lot here. Time is not on his side. He's taking some risks, but he's playing to his best chance of winning, which I think is just going for it here.
I think so. You spin it.
I mean, especially against an active Divine Top, this game's not getting better.
Yep. The more turns you play, the worse it gets. The longer, the amount of time he has to find a Terminus to ruin you, which you can do nothing about. So let's see if he finds one. Hit 1. We don't get a great look at it. 3 cards. It's the last one. He made it look pretty easy. Bottoms up. Make them all go away. You see Dan slam down Terminus. Ross is going to use these cards a little bit here, I imagine. Going to pick up the Dryad Arbor. Activate this. Get you for 2 life. And away they go. A very fortunate there for Musser.
And now Ross, of course, it's very hard for elves to rebuild when it's going off not through Glimpse. It's a lot of resources here.
There's the top again. Ross will have to try to rebuild. He made his move. Got very close. And we know he has Dryad Arbor in his hand. Don't know the rest. Looks like it may be a glimpse, but he's going to slow down a little bit here. Going to start by playing the Arbor and just pass the turn back. Musser's going to spin the top. Another copy of Terminus in there. That might be all he needs, honestly.
He has an entreat too. I mean, he can just untap and entreat for 2. I guess it's slightly better for him to hold up his defenses for 1 turn, maybe untap and entreat for 3.
There's a glimpse. Musser could win Dillion Click here.
He can also Snapcaster back the Spell Pierce.
Yep. Deathrite Shaman.
Seems pretty dangerous to let Ross get any momentum going here.
A touch.
I mean, he can't do. It's really hard for him to do very much damage here. I think if you Snapcaster back the Spell Pierce.
I think, you know, the thought process here again just might be you do your thing, you draw some cards, whatever. I Terminus you again. Merriam gonna think a while about this one. There's Nel's Visionary. Draw from Glimpse. Draw from this.
This is the reason this card specifically is the reason that I'd be concerned about letting Merriam get any traction. He actually gets up on cards.
Mm-hmm. Spin that top one more time. We'll Musser. See Jace among the cards he's looking at.
And if he fights the fight over Glimpse, it's pretty safe for him to untap and just entreat for a bunch and win the game in 2 turns. Now, I mean, entreating is still fine, but Ross has a second Craterhoof in his deck. It's not inconceivable for him to go off next turn even over the top of your entreat.
Musser going to spin, stack it. So now he draws first. He resolves Terminus, clear him up, and then he has a spin with the top. And this is him trying to turn the corner right now, because I imagine he's going to rearrange things so that Entreat the Angel is on top of his deck. Actually, it might not be there at all now. Let me see what this is. Okay, now take it back. It's Jace. So yeah, now he just wants to start Fate Sealing, I imagine. Yep. Do things this way. Get after the top of the deck. A couple different lines that Dan can take here, but they all work out pretty well.
Yeah, it's hard for Ross to. I mean, the second sweeper is practically impossible to beat.
Yeah. Ken Zenith here for 0. There's a Heritage Druid. Now here's Zenith. This again would be for Dryad Arbor as it is for 0. He knows it's on the bottom of his deck, so he will search that up and shuffle in the Zenith. Musser gonna draw. Active Jason play. Will brainstorm now. See what he wants to put back. But the Mind Sculptor is going to start to take over this game because that's what it does. We'll sacrifice Scalding Tarn. He's the Entreat on the bottom of the deck. Island going to come in. Time for Musser to shuffle.
And Dan with a really commanding hand here.
Yeah, there's top 2. He's doing great. It's just really hard for elves to be 2 sweepers. That's really the story at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And, you know, if Musser doesn't have it there, Merriam's up a game.
And he has found counterbalance as well.
The lock, draw. It's actually safe to do this, where you just play counterbalance because you have 1 on top of your deck, and as we know, Elves has a very high density of 1-mana spells.
On top of that, he has a Brainstorm in his hand, so even if Ross does something fancier, he can reconfigure as appropriate.
Ross will go into the tank. I don't know if he can overcome this, though. He's certainly going to try. Natural Order number 2. Balance. Musser actually doesn't have the mana available to cast Snapcaster into Pierce.
I mean, this is a clock.
I mean, he's trying.
Yeah, he is. Ross is definitely fighting.
See if Dan wants to cast Brainstorm.
I mean, the way that he's setting this up here, you can natural hoof, or you can natural order for a second Crater Hoof Behemoth. The Behemoth can take out Jace. You know, you attack for some damage with your Heritage Druid, and then you have a board. And if Dan's not able to find creature removal, who knows?
Yeah.
You could steal it.
I mean, that's all you can hope for. Yeah, no reason to concede. There's a hoof.
Now, I think this is going to be Ross's last stab in the game. In the event that something goes awry here, he gets hit with another Terminus or something along those lines, I think you may see Ross concede.
Yeah. This is the last hurrah.
This is the last wild haymaker he's throwing.
You know, what does make things a little interesting is, as good as Terminus is against Merriam, you know, the hoof from earlier is back in the deck. And so if this one gets killed too, that'll go back in the deck. So you can kind of keep trying to reload by hoofing over and over again with natural order.
It's hard. It's hard to keep reloading.
Yeah.
When your deck's all mana creatures and Gaia's Cradles, there's only so many times you can get hit with kill all your creatures before you can't really get your Crater Hoof back into play.
There's a top. So the 1-2 punch is back in play for Musser. He's just got to deal with what's in play. And because he has Snapcaster Mage, that means he has access to Snapcaster Mage plus Terminus. It's not cheap, but it is a way out of things. Merriam going to draw. Cradle's currently going to tap for 2 green.
So he's got a blocker here. I imagine Dan's doing this with the intent on trading.
Oh, another natural order. And the hoof in the grip.
Ugh.
Not the best place for that.
I mean, in this spot, you let Ross just keep both, right?
Those cards all suck. I'd let him keep them.
Yep. The natural order is really only threatening if it's getting a Crater Hoof. There's only 2 in the list. So.
Yeah. Let's see what this is. A little snappy?
Oh,
Oh, wow. Take that. What Dan's saying is here is that he can beat a 1-1.
yeah.
And we'll see. As Verdant Catacombs can turn into another 1-1. Gonna spin the top here. Mystic Gate, the red blast. Musser draws a card. And Merriam.
I mean, there was no help there in Dan's top 3.
Wasn't good.
He can go get the Trier or double his clock.
6 turns now. Well, well, well.
This feels like we're in sort of a replay of Game 3 of the last match where there's just enough going on to keep Ross hanging around in the game.
Beat down a clock. Maybe.
We can't win by blocking.
Yeah, yeah, and for 2. Musser's at 10. Yeah, Merriam's just going to pass the turn back. Dan's going to spin that top. Again, the cards he saw there weren't all that great.
What's curious about this is I feel like Dan may have had an opportunity just to set up a larger retreat earlier in the game and sort of shut the door a bit earlier. I still think he's a huge favorite to win this game.
Yeah, me
but
too.
it is not inconceivable for Ross to win.
There are definitely some other lines of play that Dan did have available this game. Not sure which ones were right or which ones were wrong, but he did have other lines available. Merriam's going to draw a card. You know, on that turn where he double blocked with Snapcaster Mage and Vendilion Click, is it better to do that or just hit your land drops and play Snapcaster Mage Terminus?
Yeah. Well, that might be too slow to outrace a hoof.
Mm-hmm. Spin it to win it. I think that third card was a fetch land.
Yeah, it's at least something that lets him shuffle.
Yeah. It's a flooded strand, it looks like. So spin one more time. Dan wants to get the information on what the third card down is. Another copy counterbalance. Don't need that right now. The flooded strand's going to put him to 7, which doesn't change very much as far as the clock is concerned. So down to 7. Musser will go. We'll see what land he wants to search up.
Yeah, Ross dealing damage in even increments, so Dan falling to an odd life total doesn't really matter. Dan with a little sheepish look on his face of, well, this could go wrong, I guess.
Yeah. He didn't find what he was looking for in the last match. It only took him, 80 top spins. Let's see what this is going to be. 1, 2, 3. I think I had a great look. I think one of them was a Medallion click.
Yep, but that's not a sweeper.
Yeah, that's true. Just trades with one of these.
Ross gets to keep on and keeping on with the one creature left over.
Dan puts him back on top. Merriam's going to draw. Hiya. Will Musser take 2 more? Brainstorm. Good magic card.
Pretty powerful. Most sports states and games.
Looks like he's going to put back Forcible on a land. Yep. Maybe it's click time. Yeah, it looks like it is. So there's Medallion click. Dan's last cards are Brainstorm in hand. So we'll see who click targets. Here's Ross's hand, Natural Order, Heritage Druid, Elvish Visionary, and the Hoof.
Perhaps a slight misstep here from Ross. I'm not sure if he was necessarily playing around Medallion click, but I think maybe the first order of business on that turn is just to cast the Elvish Visionary once you're allowed to get your main phase with something that costs something different than 1 mana. Is a card that can hypothetically resolve, unlike most of the things you're working with.
Oh, there goes the Druid. Musser down to 6. It's a 6-turn clock. Buckle up. It's like, uh-oh, Ross is going to play a spell. Bang. Top on the stack. Spin it. I think that last card was a Jace.
Mm-hmm.
Another really good magic card.
Ross really, I think, wants to try to force through. I thought he was going to follow up with a Visionary, perhaps.
I think what Ross is trying to do right now is kind of bluff a Dryad Arbor there with the fetch land. However, one is in the graveyard from the Natural Order. The other one's in play. He only plays 2 of them. It's time to Brainstorm here for Musser. Musser just looking for a way to close. Jace is definitely a way to get there, and Treat's the easiest way, of course. A little deeper into the deck now. So there goes 2. There's a top. So topless balance is back together. And now Merriam will draw. In for 1. I imagine ignoring Jace.
Yeah, well, now Dan is in Craterhoof range.
I mean, I guess if we can get there.
I don't know. Again, you got to do what the cards allow you to do.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think the fun is over.
Yeah. Dan's been pretty conservative about setting up and doing his entreats here, but I felt like that was a relatively safe spot to go for it.
Yeah, he's got the entreat now and Terminus too, so he's going to Brainstorm.
Force of Will backup?
Yeah.
A Jace to bounce something?
Yeah, he's in the clear. He'll just activate the top here, entreat, and clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taste it. Down to 4. Sure. Counterbalance trigger on the stack. Gonna spin this. Just wants to see if he has a 2. That's fine. I imagine he's doing that just to keep up appearances, but here's Entreat the Angels. And Ross said, I'm good. No more, please. Dan Musser going to win game number 1 here with Miracles over Ross Merriam playing Combo Elves. And that means it's time for us to come back to the booth because you got some rules to explain. I got a question to ask.
All right, so I'm just going to ask you a question. Tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responses, one will be selected at random for a full year of Star City Games premium content. It is about accuracy and not speed, so don't worry about answering first, just accurately. And please keep in mind that this giveaway is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com and that Twitch TV is in no way affiliated with giveaways on its streams.
You ready? I'm doing this for you.
Okay.
The Season 3 Invitational, along with a Grand Prix later this year. We're right here, right now. We are in the great state of blank.
State slogan is liberty and prosperity. I don't know the state bird.
If you can name the state with the state slogan of liberty and prosperity?
Liberty and prosperity. We also own the Statue of Liberty.
Really?
That was a thing. That's why New York had to take it off the license plates, because they actually ruled that it's, you know.
Got to pick your battles and win them.
Exactly.
Nicely done. Good for you. What state are we in? Name it. Hashtag with hashtag SCG Premium. Make sure you're following at SCG Live. We'll announce the winner at the conclusion of this finals match, of course. But now we'll take a look at the sideboards here. Ross Merriam does lose game number 1 there, but he's got some options here. Pit the Needle is a pretty nice one. Reclamation Sage, the Ooze, the World Spine Worm, Progenitus, a bunch of black cards there, and Thoughtseize, Abrupt Decay, Cabal Therapy, and then Sylvan Library, which I expect to come in.
There's a lot to sideboard in here. The discard spells, the Abrupt Decay, the Reclamation Sage, the Needle, and that's a lot. I don't know if Ross can really afford to bring in all of this. He almost has to convert in a different deck to bring in all of these cards, but they're all very attractive. I believe the Abrupt Decays are for sure coming in. I believe some of the discard will come in as well. I don't know. All these options are so attractive. I don't know how he makes room for all of it. It may end up that some of the discard has to stay on the bench. Maybe Sylvan Library isn't the best here because Dan can still just overpower it or lock him out, but a lot of really powerful cards in Ross's sideboard.
On Dan's side, he's got a bunch of 1s and 2s. I think the most interesting of the bunch is actually Staticaster. That's finally might get some play. I know Joe's had that in his board a little bit over the past couple of tournaments, but never actually got to see it in action, so that's kind of exciting. The Needle is, kind of whatever. Cage is obviously quite good here. No Engineered Explosives. He's got all his Terminuses in his main. You see anything else you like?
Another Verdict.
Sure, that's fine.
Bring it in.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a lot going on here. But the Staticaster is substantial in this matchup.
Actually, behind I didn't even know he was still here. Behind Ross, you can see on the rail looking at his phone is Joe Lissette. There he is. There he is. Talking to Dan right now. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if Dan's actually playing, Joe's exact copy of the deck. Their lists are so similar.
Yeah, it's not Joe's physical deck because those disgusting revised lands are not in Dan's deck.
Good
but
point.
It does. All of this list has Joe's stink all over it. So I imagine it's, if not Joe's exact 75, then at least Joe was advising Dan on a lot of the card selections.
And hey, we got to give Joe props, right?
Season 3, point leader.
Yeah.
Congratulations to him.
Pretty awesome. He's heading to the Players' Championship. He had to sweat it out during the Invitational for a while there. And he actually got off to a really poor start during the Invitationals. Came off of 2 buys, lost the 2 first rounds of Legacy. He actually lost a Counterbalance Mirror in round 3 and then got annihilated by Mud. But he rallied back in the standard portion with Blue-White Control, picked up a win or 2 on day number 2, and Alex Bertensini wasn't able to chain enough wins together. And that's why you see the fighting man there, Joe Lissette. He's headed Roanoke later this year.
Made a nice little run there in the middle of the Invitational. Not a great finish, but good enough to maintain his lead over Alex and lock up the Season 3 point invite as you see here. Congratulations to him. Well-deserved, worked hard at it, did well in a bunch of events. A nice addition to the Players' Championship.
I'd be excited to watch him play.
Yeah.
Obviously the Player Championship is this relatively small tournament, 16 players playing for $50,000, and there'll be some metagaming, I think, about what players will be playing there. And now, of course, Joe is known for playing Miracles, but he's always had like that Tezzeret deck in the holster that he's never pulled out.
That's a gutsy move.
I would love it.
Trying out new material on the road.
Bust that baby out when no one sees it coming.
Yep.
So that'll start things off here for Merriam. Musser is going to play a Flooded Strand, sacrifice that, so it's 19 all. Tundra is the weapon of choice, and we'll see what he wants to do in his first turn of the game.
I think it's more realistic that Ross is going to be converting into, it's kind of funny to say, but a beatdown deck in this matchup because he brings in so much quality disruption. It has to come at the cost of threat density.
There's a Grafdigger's Cage. Wouldn't be surprised if we maybe board out some things too to make Grafdigger's Cage worse. Maybe board out Natural Order, and yeah, just be a beatdown, like kind of like a rock approach.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if he can do a full swap because this deck is really underpowered for that role, but I think there's going to be a larger element of that in the post-board games.
In for 2 with the Nettle Sentinel. There's another Nettle Sentinel. Merriam with a Cradle. Oh, here we go. Wirewood. Anything else? Yeah, another Wirewood. Moving in. Daring Musser to have Terminus. Not that one. Wrong Miracle, Dan. I've grown to really appreciate the Miracle mechanic. At the beginning, I didn't like it, but I think it's great for coverage. It's actually great to play against, too.
Yeah.
Great to play with.
Here's the thing. Draw steps and Magic have always had variable values. That's not different now.
No.
Miracles do it in a more explicit way, but it's the same thing. Sometimes your opponent draws a good card. That's a thing that happens.
Oh. Here's a Brainstorm. Dan could have spiked a Terminus there, but he did not. Now he's got to think about things. He's being attacked for 6.
And it's not like every miracle is good 100% of the time.
Yeah, of course.
The only miracle that you could really make that that critique of is the Time Walk, and that barely saw any constructive play.
Yeah. I remember when that card got released. Boy, the community was in an uproar.
We're going to brainstorm that thing on the top, and then we're going to untap, and then I'm going to hit with my Nimble Mongoose for another point of damage and pass the turn back.
Good luck, buddy.
They're going to have to ban Brainstorm.
Yeah. Ross is going to pick this up, untap that, replay this, untap that. He knows how all the interactions work with this deck. There's a Dryad Arbor. Add to the force.
And Ross, I really like this, making no effort to play around sweepers here, just playing out his hand. Because what else is he going to do?
Yeah. Now, Dan actually has a couple copies of Force Will. Not willing to Force Will these things. No, I'm not forcing that.
Yeah.
Merriam will draw.
But if Ross has dramatically reconfigured his deck where he's going to be focused a lot more on attacking, then maybe things like Nettle Sentinel are correct to Force of Will.
Mm-hmm.
I think Force of Willing the first one is almost certainly a mistake, but as this game progresses, I think it's more of an argument comes for trying to shut down the random beaters.
Let's see what this is. Pick this up. Untap the Dryad Arbor, Forest.
Uh-oh.
Oh, hoof, there it is. Ross.
Oh, natural.
Ross going for it. This is worth Force of Will.
I think this is Force of Will worthy.
Yeah, I think so too.
You know, the 2-power Nettle Sentinel, maybe not. The 5-power guy that adds 12 power to the team, probably worth fighting over.
Yes, there is a Force of Will. Moving and counterbalance. So, hoof, there it isn't. Here's an attack. It'll be in for 3. Musser with a click. See who he targets here. Going to target Merriam. Natural Order, along with the Nettle Sentinel. So Ross is certainly still trying to combo. But of course, Natural Order does no good when there is a Grafdigger's Cage in play.
But Ross, with a variety of RTKs here in the board. Also, possibly Reclamation Sage as well. Wouldn't surprise me if that got brought in as a Zenith target. Not that he can Zenith now, but it's also just a fine card to draw.
Yep. Nettle Sentinel trades with Vendilion Click, and now here's the Mind Sculptor. in just a moment, I believe, here from Musser as he quickly sacrificed the Flooded Strand. There's a Tundra. Of course, can search up non-basics at will. He doesn't have to worry about Wasteland here or any Blood Moon type effects. And this is Jace.
The way this game is shaping up, I think Dan is just searching for a sweeper or entreat the Angels. Ross is really low on resources. He now knows the contents of Ross's hand isn't very good. I think that he's even willing to maybe lose this Jace to random attacks to try to brainstorm as aggressively as possible.
Yeah, and Dan actually does have Entreat the Angels in his hand, so he's going to put some cards back here. He drew 3 cards, going to put 2 back. He picked up a Counterbalance, another Jace, and a Caracas to go along with the Entreat, so we'll see how he sets things up. Trying to hold on at 9 life here. The defenses are a little soft right now.
And I think Dan, it looks like he's just putting the entreat on top of right now. Firing it off for 2 here seems plenty good. I mean, you know, again, Ross has a very weak hand.
Yeah, if that thing's out there for 2 defending Jace, Jace gets to work its advantage, and between that and the Grafdigger's Cage, it seems really tough for Merriam to get out of it. In we go.
Hi-ya.
Merriam ignoring Jace again. Nettle Sentinel. Kick it on over. Musser will draw and treat the Angels for 2.
And I like this play a lot from Dan. Just try to lock up this board as fast as possible.
Wonder if he has interest in Fate Sealing here. He's going to brainstorm. No Fate Seals, thank you. Jace, I think a misdirection. That's Julius that stink if I've ever seen it.
Oh, yeah. What do you think he's trying to misdirect in the matchup?
Abrupt Decay. Try to kill my Counterbalance, kill your elf.
Okay, that's very specific.
Yep.
But
I think that's almost certainly what it is.
I suppose Thoughtseize as well.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, there's enough.
They're definitely targets. So that's, you know, just a fun of.
Well, it's definitely good now that Grafdigger's Cage is shutting down the natural order, and the only way for Ross to really get out of it. I guess Reclamation Stage is still a draw, but Dan has set up a board state where misdirection has the potential to be very good.
Miracle's looking to take another one home here.
I think Dan has just found a Venser. And that means that he can start getting very aggressive with these Angel tokens.
Yeah, the Venser Caracas lock. That's all sorts of fun. Has to figure out exactly what he wants to do. Couple cards go back on top. There's a Strand. There's an attack for 4. Yeah, you said it. He can get really aggressive now. Merriam with a glimpse, so he's going to try to go this way. Can't misdirect that.
Not really efficient to Venser it either.
Yeah. That might be the card that he's looking for. Breaks some of the parity here. That's good. There's this. So we're getting interesting now. Now draw a card. Huh.
I mean, that's the card here that Dan doesn't really have covered. He has a lot of the consequences of this wrapped up, but Ross is on 16. He can afford to take 1 hit from both of these Angels and fall to 8. And Dan without a sweeper, just a Venser to protect himself. That may be enough if he's got him on a 2-turn clock, but I'm sure that's the card Dan wanted to see least of all.
Cradle taps for 4. Another one. Same one as before. Elvish Visionary. I believe 1 green mana left floating. Draw 2 cards. How deep can Merriam go? He can generate a lot of green mana because he's got Heritage Druid out there. There's the Ranger. Draw a card.
Another thing that could happen here is that Ross might be able to build up enough of a board to just attack through Dan's defenses.
Exactly what I was thinking. He can just get enough dummies out there. He can generate so much mana and draw so many cards that it's entirely possible that he just puts enough.
He puts 15 1/1s into play or something, and
Yeah.
that's good enough to get it done.
Sure, Ross has been here before.
I mean, Venser definitely complicates matters.
Of course.
And Dan has a lot of ways to take the wind out of Ross's sails from a, trying to set up an alpha strike perspective. He can go end of turn, Venser one of your creatures, Caracas my Venser, untap, Jace, unsummon something, attack you with both of the angels, say go. That's a lot of defense that Dan can generate, but now with this glimpse, it's not impossible for Ross to build up enough of a board.
But he slows way down. Just plays a Misty Rainforest, kicks it back over to Dan.
Dan's got to do something with this Venser, I feel like.
It's kind of like a free roll, right?
Yeah, it's a free roll.
You're going to sacrifice the Flutter and go down to 6. Going to search up a Tundra.
Interested to see what the incentive is to sack the Flooded Strand right now, because it feels like 1 point of damage is a big deal, given the game plan that Ross is trying to set up here.
Well, he does know the 2 cards are on top of his deck from the Jace Brainstorm, and he just might be generally unhappy with those.
Sure.
I will be a little surprised if he doesn't just, venture something, Caracas back to my hand, and then untap it. It doesn't look like he's going to.
Yeah, it looks like he just untapped and passed.
All right. Now, to be fair, as he draws a copy of Force of Will, Ross hasn't seen the Venser, so maybe Dan doesn't want to show it at all. So here's a Brainstorm, because then it could work in, the equation. Doesn't set, it's not that big of a trap then.
Well, the thing is, Ross's hand is likely Force in this scenario. He doesn't have a lot of time here, and he has to also win the game before Dan finds a sweeper through the Jace. So there's 2 situations here. 1, Dan finds a sweeper. 2, Dan just is attacking with the Angels down to 8, past the turn. Ross can't block a flyer. So Ross is likely in a scenario where whatever the board looks like next turn, he's just going to go for it anyway, because what other option is there? So I think that the value of keeping the Venser concealed is less than the upside of just getting 1 permanent off the table.
And there's a counterbalance. There's a top. Yep. Rocking a hard place now. Dan's played the games relatively conservatively, but truth be told, I've actually liked the way he's played these games.
Well, this is now kind of an awkward situation because Ross can just go untap, attack you.
And the problem with that is he has a Terminus on top of his deck.
Ah, yeah. Well then, never you mind.
Yeah. His Terminus on top of his deck, yeah, he's getting aggressive.
So now he's in a spot where he can either present lethal next turn, or if Ross does something to present lethal himself, he can break the emergency glass, Terminus all away.
Yeah.
Top counterbalance set up.
Also has Force of Will and Misdirection and Venser in his hand. I think he's got all avenues covered, as Ross is going to sacrifice the Misty Rainforest. Again, can't search for Dryad Arbor in this situation because Grafdigger's Cage. So he has to go get a Bayou. Unsurprisingly, Merriam does know that. And so I wouldn't be surprised to see is Merriam try maybe like an Abrupt Decay on the top. And that's where the Misdirection comes into play.
Or Dan can also just pull the trigger on Terminus right there if he's feeling so inclined.
Well, on his turn, because this is on
Oh,
Dan's
yeah,
turn, so
we're still on, yes,
Yeah.
we're still on Dan's turn. Pardon me.
Ross will draw now. That situation doesn't come up. Yep, there's a Visionary. Again, the Cradle is tapping right now for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 3 left. Again, it continues to be a situation when you're Elves against Miracles where you just sit here the entire time and just hope they don't have Terminus.
And the deck is so good at looking at so many different cards that your hand's forced. You just have to kind of play what your hand allows you to play. And if they have it, that's going to be it.
1 green left. No green left. Can you see Musser's hand, the Force of Will, the Venser, and the Misdirection? Top plus counterbalance. Everything just relatively good to go here. Wirewood's going to resolve.
Looks like Dan may reorder because he still has he can counter here and still, if he wants to, reorder and then Terminus.
Yeah. He found a Swords of Plowshares in there.
And the Wirewood Symbiote is a little bit annoying from Dan's perspective because it is something that allows him to bring something back to bring something back to his hand after a Terminus. So I think it makes sense if the cost is basically 0 for Dan to put the Swords of Plowshares on top and then still have the option of pulling the trigger on respinning the top and using Terminus.
Maybe it's about that time. Yeah.
This also works. You can just put the top on top.
Yep. This is all with Wirewood on the stack, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now Ross going to add a green mana. Wirewood's going to get used. Pick up Visionary. And so he's going to try to rebuild it. It's going to be tough. He can also add some green mana here with like the Heritage Druid and some of the elves. So he can get a little bit creative with how much mana he can have. Yep, there's 3 more green. Actually interesting to watch. Pick this up. Everything else is going to go to the bottom. And again, now that Wirewood's going to go to the bin from the counterbalance trigger that reveals Sensei's Divining Top. So now here's the recasting of the Elves Visionary. Again, I think he has 1 mana left. But again, Musser has a Force of Will if he wants to counter this. He doesn't want to, though. Don't forget, Musser did lose his Angel tokens in that exchange.
He still has Chase Plus, Counterbalance, Divining Top, so he's not hurting for things to be doing. And now remember, he also has access to Venser plus Caracas, which is going to cover a lot of the other lines of play Ross has theoretical access to.
Oh, Brainstorm. Couple of cards here for Musser. See Dan looking at Swords of Force. There's a Tarn. There's the top. Tarn important if in case he deems it important enough to reshuffle.
Yeah, I mean, he's floating some pretty powerful cards right now, but it is a nice option to have access to.
Uh-oh. Saddle up. Oh no. It's a trap. Venser's hungry.
Ow.
Yeah. Bounce that, eat that. One of my favorite creatures of all time.
Does just enough little stuff.
The return target spell. I remember watching, the Pro Tour B1 where Venser was returning every copy of Enduring Ideal via I think it was via Riptide Lab.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was just really, really cool to me. It's like one of the few ways for the deck to get out of that situation. I love the way that card was designed. Musser draws. He's almost got the full lock engaged.
Not only does he almost have the full lock engage, but he almost has Ross dead just from attacks.
Yeah. Musser going to go to 5. Merriam's at 7. Because those angels from Entreat the Angels got some work in. I don't know, the crowd is the camp seems pretty split on Entreat the Angels in this deck. I know that, Brian, BBD doesn't play with it, Reed does. Jerry's not a big fan of it. I don't know, I'm a pretty big Entreat fan in this deck.
Well, I don't like trying to win the game out of something out of your hand. It feels like once your deck is built around Sensei's Divining Top, you should be trying to win through Divining Top as well. And a lot of the alternate win conditions seem a little on the mopey side. Like Stoneforge Mystic, for example, I'm not a huge fan of because your Stoneforge just gets plowed, and then that's kind of it.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Joe Lissette school because all these creatures do things by themselves.
Yeah.
They can win games by themselves, but they also provide other random utility. So I don't mind that if you want to go down that road.
They also make you play around their effects too, right?
Yeah.
Flashback and Fencer and all that stuff. Like you have to weigh that into the equation whenever you're doing stuff. Ross just plays a Dryad Arbor, the second one in his deck. Passes the turn back, I believe. Musser, I believe, is looking at a Vendilion click now as well. And looks like he will cast this. So he's getting closer to wrapping things up. Here's the grip. It's pretty bad. It's a couple of lands, 2 natural orders, a bunch of stuff where Musser doesn't even have to take the time to write it down. Just says, dude, keep it.
Yeah.
Dan gonna spin top now. I think the top card, I think, was Swords. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Terminus in there too as another panic button.
Musser gonna draw. In for 3 in the air. Events are gonna hold the ground. Merriam's gonna go to 2. Fate Seal, make sure everything's clear. I think that's a copy of Pithing Needle, I believe, for Ross.
Yeah, you can keep that.
You can draw that, my friend. And that is going to do it. Dan Musser is our Legacy Open champion here in New Jersey.
Good run by Ross, another finals appearance with Elves. I think this matchup's just really hard. He played, I think, to the best of his abilities, played towards his outs, and Dan was just able to cobble together enough Terminus, enough copies of Terminus at the right time.